Happy Mask Monday. I have this collagen mask. I don't know what brand it is. Let's see, it came in a box, big old box for this little bitty mask, kind of wasteful packaging. Global Beauty Care. You can't really see that, it's like a mirrored box, but I'm not sure why it's got this big old box for this one thing. It wasn't even two in here, it was just one. I don't understand. So I didn't do this yesterday, and I should have, but I'm going to do it today. Where were you on 9/11? I went to work at 8 or at 7 o'clock, so which is 7 o'clock Central Time is like a few minutes before it all happened, because it happened at like 8:16 or something like that Eastern Time. And I worked in this big, I was on the upper floor. There's a big open area with cubicles, but the cubicles had these short walls so you could see over them. They weren't the kind, where you were boxed in. And I was at the front of the row of cubicles, and in front of me, it's kind of the front of the building, there was this area where they had like training and meetings and stuff, and so there's chairs and a couple TVs and all that for training. So when somebody comes in, like, I got there a little early, so if somebody got there a little late and came in, they'd heard something in their car, and they said there's something happening in New York. And so we went over and we turned the TV on, and we couldn't get it to work right and had to fiddle with it, and we were like, what's going on? We finally got the TV to work, and we saw the first plane, just a replay of it. And everybody initially thought it was like a small plane or something, nobody knew. And then when the second plane hit, the cameras were already there, so it wasn't like after the fact thing, and we realized it was an airliner. So after the second one hit, everybody knew it wasn't an accident. And then we just kept watching, standing there in horror like everybody else, watching these TVs, and for a couple hours or hour, however long, till it kind of all shook down. And our lovely bosses told everybody, okay, get back to work. And almost everybody I knew, their bosses sent them home, but they didn't send us home early, not even early. We had to work our whole shift. But since I was in that front row and they just kind of left the TVs on, I didn't even pretend to work. I just sat there and watched TV the whole time. And, tried to call my family and like, wake up, turn on the TV, if they weren't awake or whatever. And nobody got anything done. It was stupid to make us work, or work, because we obviously didn't work. And then, of course, you go home and it was like you spent the weekend or the week, I can't remember what day of the week it was, just watching TV for a couple days straight. Same thing happened with the Kennedy assassination. Everybody just sat there glued to their TVs for several days straight. And then it was just eerie going out, and there's no airplanes. I mean, didn't realize how many times airplanes went over until they stopped all air traffic. And I had several people I knew that got stuck somewhere or another because there was no air traffic. You had to rent a car and drive or whatever, because you couldn't fly anywhere. And I mean, I even knew somebody that got stuck in another country. And I think they were in Japan or China or somewhere, and they, couldn't get home for, a week or so. But, yeah, it was just horrifying to watch. And my son being a firefighter, it was really scary because, you know, you saw them all going in the building and not coming back out. So it was sort of terrifying. And I don't know if he wanted to go or ended up going. I can't remember now. You know, because a bunch of firefighters from all over the country went eventually, you know, not right away, but, you know, went to help dig through the rubble and help support the fire departments that didn't have anybody, you know, because half their people died. I don't remember if he went or not. I think he did eventually go, but it was later, you know. Thank goodness it wasn't, you know, immediately, because a lot of those ones that worked the rubble ended up with like lung cancer and stuff like that from the dust from the rubble. And then I had a friend whose son worked for Southwest, and she was gonna go overseas on a job, and she worked for a company that she had just started working for, this company that was headquartered in Washington, D.C. So she had to go there and take some tests and do paperwork and all that kind of stuff. And this was like November. It was like Thanksgiving week, after 9/11, and people still weren't flying very much. I mean, and the airports were still just. And she asked if I wanted to go along because, you know, she could get me a ticket from her son for free, and we could just, you know, she just had to spend, you know, like one day doing paperwork and stuff, and then we could stay a few days. And so I said, well, sure, why not, you know. So we go to the airport, and since we're flying standby, we just had like carry-on luggage, and there was just long lines getting through, like getting through customs or something, you know, because they were checking everybody's baggage really carefully and all that back in those days. And there were guys walking around with like military guys walking around with machine guns and stuff, you know, walking around the airports. And so we were sitting waiting to see if we could fly standby, which was pretty easy to do because hardly anybody was flying in those days, especially to Washington, D.C. I mean, who wanted to fly there, you know? It was scary to do. And so we're sitting there, and one of the guys with the big guns comes up, and there's a bag just sitting there, and you weren't supposed to leave your bags unattended at all. And so he's like, whose bag is this? And we're all like pointing, that guy, you know. And they made him go all the way back through that big long line, and he missed his flight because he was an idiot and left his bag unattended. So we got to Washington, D.C., and, you know, drove by and looked at the Pentagon and the big hole in the Pentagon, and it was just like the Hope Diamond's in Washington, D.C., and you can usually never see it because it's in this glass case and people like crowd all around. And we just walked up, and it's like, oh, yep, there's a big diamond. There was hardly anybody there because people were just still kind of terrified to A, fly, and B, go to Washington, D.C. And we were walking down the street, and we saw there was a mail truck, and it stopped in front of some federal building, and guys come running out of the building with, you know, guns and search dogs, and it was just a mail truck. And so they, before the mail went in that, whatever that federal building was, the search dogs sniffed and did their thing, and the guys with the guns made sure the postal guy was the postal guy and all that before they let anything into the building. And there was a lot of military guys walking around with guns, and you couldn't, they blocked off Pennsylvania Avenue, so you couldn't walk in front of the White House and see the White House at all. It was, that part was blocked off. You couldn't get anywhere near the White House to walk. You know, normally you can just kind of walk by and ooh, look at the White House. But back then, I don't know when it got changed, but back then, you know, 2 months after 9/11, you couldn't get anywhere near a lot of those federal buildings and stuff unless you had a reason to be there. But it was kind of fun in a way. I mean, it was kind of sad in a way, but it's also kind of fun in a way because there's nobody there, and we could go to the museums and stuff, and it wasn't crowded. So we stayed a couple days and flew back home. And on the flight back, I mean, just, everybody's oversensitive. And there was a guy, and I know he was probably a student or something, but there was a guy across from me and up one that he had these blueprints to an airplane out looking at him. And it gave me a heart attack there for a little bit, and then I kind of looked closer and it's like a little Cessna or something. But still, you just, after all that happened, you just have these second thoughts about why is that guy looking at a blueprint of an airplane? What's going on? And, he was probably like a college age kid studying aeronautics or something, who knows. But anyway, so where were you? And some of you youngins probably don't even remember. My granddaughters they're both 20, so my two oldest grandkids are 20, so none of them were alive during all of this going on. I mean, there's usually one big event like that you remember. Like in my kids' generation, other than 9/11, the big one was the Challenger blowing up. In my generation, it was JFK, Kennedy being assassinated. I was 14 or so, 13, 14. I was a freshman in high school, so however old you are then. And they, initially, we're in class and you get we have an announcement to make, and we're all like, you think it's some stupid assembly you have to go through or something. And then they said the president's been shot, and we were all like shocked. And they didn't send us home initially. I mean, we just kind of wandering around the campus shocked, and then eventually they just announced that he died and that everybody go home. And of course, I'm here in Dallas where he died, and my sister came to visit. This was, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. And we went to what's called the 6th Floor Museum, and it's a museum of where the shot was fired from, the school book depository. They made a museum of that. And there's this guy that somehow, there's always 2 presidential limos that are exactly the same. And somehow this guy got a hold of, not the one that Kennedy was assassinated in, but he got a hold of the duplicate, the one that's just the same. And he does these tours where he picks you up at the airport where Kennedy flew in, and he takes you on the parade route that Kennedy went on. And it's like, this is where he stopped and held out his hand to this little girl, and this is where this happened, and this is where that happened. And then we're in this open limo with flags flying and stuff, so it looks like very official. And he's got, like, through the radios playing news clips from like Walter Cronkite and news people like that. And so we pull up and slow down in front of the Texas School Book Depository, because you have to slow down because there's a curve, and then through the speakers of the car is gunshots. And then we speed up and we go to Parkland Hospital, which is where they took him and he died. So we went the complete route, and once he got shot, then they're playing news clips of what the news people were saying about it all. And then on the way back to drop us off, he showed us where the theater was where they caught Lee Harvey Oswald. So it was very, very, very tacky, but it was very interesting too. But you can go to, and you come to Dallas, it's Daley Plaza, and you go to the 6th Floor Museum, and there's the grassy knoll where it's like, was there a gunman on the grassy knoll and all that? You can see all of that, so it's kind of interesting piece of history. But anyway, I've had this on long enough. I just wondered where you were 21 years ago, minus a day. Today's the 12th, not the 11th. This is still really juicy. Feels really good. So, anyway, kind of a depressing subject, but I saw this YouTube video and it was just, it's shameful. It was college age-ish kids and they're asking them questions about 9/11 and they didn't know anything. I mean, what is our, why is our schools not teaching that? Why are they covering that up? I don't know. Yeah, it just boggles the mind that they didn't know anything. They said, well, one of them said, well, they talked a little bit about it when I was in 5th grade and maybe a little bit when I was a sophomore in high school, but I don't really know that much. I mean, they didn't know who did it, why they did it, anything. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I just don't understand it. I mean, there's what's that famous quote about um, those who don't study history are condemned to repeat it. I believe that. I mean, we need to know these things. Alrighty, enough depressing stuff. If you don't know who I am, I'm Pat, Blessed GMP. The P's the Pat part stands for Blessed Grandma Pat, which I am. I do unboxings and cooking and crafting and Max Mondays and all kinds of things. Love to have you. I've got one giveaway. You have to search for it. I'm gonna do the drawing today, I think. And it's a secret giveaway that's within the last week. There was a secret giveaway, so you have to go look for that. And then I've got a couple collabs coming up, not this week, but next week. And everybody in the collab will be doing giveaways, so there'll be lots of chances to win stuff in the next week and a half or so. And I have a Wee Blessings coming still this month, which is a like Stitch Fixie kind of thing. It's a clothing subscription. And I also have ice cream beauty box coming still this month. And then the first 2 weeks of October, I'm going to Costa Rica, so I'm going to take you with me to Costa Rica. So stay tuned for some fun stuff. Love y'all. Bye-bye.